Hi everyone, my name is Shrikant. Today we are going to learn about Queueable in Salesforce. This is second video in Asynchronous Apex series and we'll go through a couple of scenarios to have a better understanding. By end of this video, you will be able to understand what is Queueable and why should we learn Queueable when we already got future method, and we'll go through some scenarios when Queueable has to be used instead of future method, and we'll go through some limitations with Queueable. Okay, first things first. Queueable is basically an asynchronous process. What is asynchronous process? I have already made a video on future method where I have clearly explained the difference between synchronous and asynchronous process. So I have added the link description down below, or you can also click on information icon on the right top. But for now, I will explain with a small example. Okay, so today morning when I woke up, I have four tasks to do. One is taking shower and then getting ready, and then having my breakfast, and I realize my car engine is not starting, so give my cover servicing, and finally I want to go to a movie with my girlfriend. So asynchronous is something which runs in background without you having to wait for the task to finish. So if you see all these four tasks, we need to realize which one doesn't need my physical presence. So taking a shower and then getting ready, of course I need to get ready. Eating my breakfast, obviously I need to eat. And then movie with my girlfriend, of course I have to go to a movie with my girlfriend, not someone else. And finally, giving my car for service. Giving my car for servicing doesn't need my physical presence there. I don't need to wait till the servicing is completed. So if you see how synchronous does and asynchronous does, then you will clearly understand the importance of asynchronous process. So if we time frame these things, taking a shower 20 minutes, breakfast 10 minutes, car servicing 120 minutes, and movie with my girlfriend 2 hours. So if I wait for car servicing for 2 hours to complete and then I go to movie with my girlfriend, obviously it will take 270 minutes like here, which is 4.5 hours. So instead, after completing my breakfast in the asynchronous process, I can give my car for servicing and I can take a cab and then come back to my girlfriend and then go to a movie. And once my movie is done, and then I will go back to car servicing to pick it up. So if you see, it just took 150 minutes while I'm watching my movie with my girlfriend, then car servicing is being done parallelly. So this is what asynchronous mean. Anything that doesn't need your physical presence or doesn't need user interaction. In our computer terminology, we call it as user interaction. So if we don't need any user interaction to a specific job, just move it to a synchronous job, then automatically it will be run parallelly. And your task will be done in different end and back, and it will be done with another task. As simple as that. It will save your time and it will not bore you. Simple. Okay, now we'll discuss about hero of our video, which is a Queueable interface. Queueable is very much similar to future method. Queueable is also a set of code that runs in background, which is asynchronous. Similar to future method, then why should I learn Queueable? Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, I will get into that. For people who doesn't know him, his name is Qboy. He will be appearing in most of my videos. He insults, of course, sometimes consults me about Salesforce topics. Okay, let's define what is Queueable first, and then you will understand what is the difference between future and Queueable. Okay, if you want some logic to run asynchronously, like future method, you can have it inside an execute method. In future method, you can define your method with any name, but here it has to be inside execute. Future is just a method, but in Queueable, this is a class. So you need to add your code inside execute method, and that execute method has to be in some class, and that has to implement Queueable interface. What is implements here? Implements is something when you're trying to leverage some kind of benefits from an interface. Come on, what is interface again? So here Queueable is an interface. Think Queueable as a to-do list, like your daily to-do list, which is having taking of shower and then going to office. Now, any class that implements Queueable method needs to follow the to-do list. So in this example, as your class is implementing Queueable, execute method has to be implemented. So you need to write your execute, and inside execute, you need to write your own logic, which needs to run in background. Okay, let's see an example how to create a Queueable class. Now open a new class, create a new class, and give something called test demo Queueable. Okay, now we have our class. So this is very ordinary class. How to make this class to work as like a queueable so that it will run asynchronously. So any class, if you want to make it asynchronous, and that queueable implements Queueable interface. So we have something called Queueable interface. As I said, interface is some kind of to-do list. Now we made our class to Queueable. We made our class to implement Queueable interface, which we are trying to leverage Queueable interface method. So as soon as Salesforce sees this class, it will understand, okay, whenever this class is getting called, I need to run this asynchronously. Now, as we have defined Queueable, let's try to save. It will not allow you to save, and it says class must implement the method execute. As you are trying to implement this Queueable interface, this interface is having a to-do list which is execute method. Here we just need to write that method here. So we'll write public void and we need to write execute method, and then it is having a parameter as system dot, or you can directly give as Queueable context and then give any parameter name. Okay, now we have our method, and now we'll try to save. As our class is ready and it is trying to implement Queueable, we need to write the to-do list, which is execute method. Now we have our execute method. What is the next step? Our next step is write your whatever logic that needs to run in background. Simple. So if you write your logic inside this execute method, and if you call this class, then automatically Salesforce will understand I have to run this method, I have to run this class in the background. Now let's try to see, so you can write any logic. So if you want to delete all kind of, what's it called, all the existing records, ID from cases, and then you can just do this. So it will delete all the cases in Salesforce. You can, or you can just put condition something like where created date is equal to, you can just give as last year, then it will delete all the cases related to last year. Or you can write any update function, update on existing accounts or contacts, etc, etc. Sorry, it says case. Okay, whatever logic if you want to write and you want that to run asynchronously, you need to write your logic inside execute method. As easy as that. Okay, I got the syntax, but why should I learn Queueable when we already got future method? Okay, wait, just before that we need to understand how to call a Queueable method. So this is a Queueable class where we have an execute method inside. So if you want to call this class, then we need to write system.inQjob and new and the class name. So my class is the Queueable class. So you can call this system.inQjob from any of your Apex class or from your execute anonymous, etc, etc. Okay, back to the base. To understand how to call this Queueable, first of all, why we need to call this Queueable? Because our execute method has to run asynchronously. So as we have seen, we have something called system.inQ method to call any Queueable class. So what is system.inq? So we will call the system.inq. We can call system.inq from a trigger or from another class or from execute anonymous, etc, etc. For now, I prefer execute anonymous. So there is a function which is called system.inQ function, inQ job. And so what is this job? So in queue, as it says, as the name says queue, it will put all the jobs, queueable jobs inside a queue. So let's say this is job 1, and you can also keep another job as something like this, and then which is job 2, job 3, etc, etc. So they are all these jobs, each job says each of the class. So job 1, job 2, job 3, etc, jobs. Basically we are trying to put all those jobs in a queue. Whenever the resources are available, those classes will run or those jobs will run. As simple as that. Here, as we do not have multiple jobs, we have only one job, which is test demo queueable. How to call the job name directly? So we need to instantiate that particular class inside this queueable job. If you're not aware, this is how we need to instantiate any class from any place. So this is how we need to instantiate our class, and that class will be instantiated and that class will be added into the queue. So whenever the resources are available, it will run our class automatically. Now you have system.inQjob and we have instantiated. We'll try to execute. So just before I click on execute, I want you to notice this logs, and under there is no history of records. So basically, if you people not aware of these logs will have every transaction or every action that you perform here. Let's say I click on execute. If this job runs automatically, that will be recorded here as well. So I will click on execute and let's see any data will be recorded here. So I will click on execute, which basically means I am trying to run the Queueable job, which says I want to delete all the cases that are created last year and that to asynchronous. I click on execute and I should be seeing, you see, so this is the execute method. As soon as I click on execute, this is getting called. As we have called our execute, as we have told it has to be executed asynchronously, it will take it as another job, and here it will have the logic to delete the cases. Let's see if there is any such kind of recording. Take this down and then we'll scroll down and then come down. You see, so this is the logic that is being run. That's how the logs will be recorded. So as you have seen, this is how you need to call any Queueable class, something like system.inqueue. I hope you got it. Okay, I got the syntax, but why should I learn Queueable when we already got future method? You are such a stubborn boy. Okay, you win. Let me answer your questions. Okay, not one. Queueable got 3 benefits over future method. Okay, we'll talk about first benefit. Queueable allows chaining of jobs unlike future method. Let's say we have 3 jobs as described here: deleting of old cases, updation of current cases, and creating of new cases. If there are 3 jobs separately, one has to be done one after other. All of them has to be asynchronous. Future method cannot handle it. You cannot call one future method from another future method. But Queueable has that advantage where you can call another asynchronous job from this job. So how to link them? How to chain one Queueable class to another Q class? So you know how to call a Queueable class, right? System.inqueue new my class. So in one class, you can directly use system.inqueue of second class, something like this. So this is the first job where you have an execute method. Assumably you have a second job with a class name second job, and you can just call system.inqueue job from this current job. Once your current logic is done, then you can call this as the last line system.inqueue job new second job. Then once this execute is done at the last line, it will call the second job. Okay, let's see an example. So as it says chaining of jobs, we need to create a couple of jobs to understand how this chaining works. So I will create 2 classes. One says first job and second one says second job. So first job Queueable. Okay, and then click on OK. As you have already know, we need to implement Queueable interface, Queueable interface, and then we need to write our execute method, execute, and then you need to give your Queueable context as a parameter, and then queue context, and then here you can write any logic. So I will just give something like deletion of some accounts, or maybe contacts. Select ID from accounts where created date is equal to last year. Okay, so basically this class is all about deletion of accounts. Okay, so I will click on save. So once this class is run asynchronously, it should be account, and I click on save. So this class is all about deletion of accounts asynchronous. We'll create a second job which should be naming as second job Queueable. Yeah, and done. And now as you already know, we just need to make it as implements and then Queueable. So only then it will understand this is a Queueable class, and then it will run asynchronously. And you already know, as it is as we are implementing Queueable interface, we need to write execute method with Queueable context as a parameter. And then here I will delete, there we have deleted contacts, right? Accounts, there here we will delete contacts. Select ID from contact where created date is equal to last year. I suppose it's year, right? Last year also I need to give year. Yeah, done. So we have 2 jobs. So these 2 jobs has to run one after other. So as you already know, if I need to call this Queueable, I can directly give it as system.inqueue, and then instead of this class, as you already know, we need to instantiate. So I can just use job and then Queueable. Okay. And then if I want to run the second job after that, I can give like this, something like second. But there is a problem here. So even though you give one by one or even the order changes, there is no guarantee that second one will run after the first one, because as they run asynchronously, it will understand. So even though if it puts in queue, it will not it might put first one and then second, so first and then second, but resources are more available for second, so it will run second first. That's how it works. So there is no guarantee that it will run first one first and then second one later. So there is no chance of having, there is no guarantee that it will run one after that. So how to solve this? So instead of going to this execute, in this execute of first method, I can give. So here we need to chain any job if you want. So how? Same as this. So in queue and job, and then we need to give our instantiation of second job. Simple. Queueable. Done. See, once your job is done, so we will call our first job, and then from there it will execute our deletion of accounts, and once that execution is done, we are chaining the second job. So we'll click here save. So first job is getting chained to the second job. So once the first job is done, only then the second job will run, which will delete the contacts. So now if you go to the first one, we'll just try to call the first one directly. Control A, this, and then here I will just call the first job. So as you have, I think you understood this. So we are calling the first one, which we are sending into queue. Once this first job runs, inside the first job, all the lines are executed, and then we are chaining the second job. The second job will run, and in second job we have the execute method where it will delete the contacts. Okay. Now we'll see whether it is working properly or not. So click on execute. Then it should display 1, 2, and 3. See? This one and second one. So this is our execute anonymous logic. So Queueable handler is basically the class, Queueable class that runs the logic. So first operation, second operation. We are not really sure which one is which. So I will open first one first, and we'll see. I see any kind of select query on account. So if you see the timings, so this one ran first, which is 51 or 42 seconds. Which one is this? This should be having accounts because first job is having the accounts here. This says first job queue, which ran around 151.42 seconds, and then second job we have this which runs second. Okay, that's how you can chain the jobs. In the same way, if you have any other job from second job, you can directly link it like this. So there is no limit, you can link as much as possible. You just need to instantiate your class there. So if you have any third job, Queueable, done. See? So in third, you can put another one, and then you can link as many as possible. See? Very, very easy. Chaining of Queueable, chaining of jobs is only possible in queues, not in future methods. This is one of the advantage. Okay, benefit number 2 of Queueable or future method. So we can get an idea of your job. So what does that mean? So future method, whenever your job runs in background, if you want to know the progress, it is quite difficult. So future method will not offer it, but here your system.inqueue job will provide you an ID where that ID can help you to know the job progress. Let's say you want to delete all the existing records in database, but it will take quite a long time. So by using this ID, you will understand how many are deleted and what is the progress of the current job. So you can get it how system.inqueue job, and if you give the job name, this will automatically return the job ID. By using that job ID, you can easily understand what is the progress of your Queueable job. Okay, just for your reference, so even though we don't have our job ID, we can still see our job's progress. But for now, we'll see how to capture the job ID. This is for the record, but really you don't need the job ID. So I will just take this job. So as you know how to get the job ID. So this method itself will provide you the job ID. It will return it. So I will just put job ID is equal to, so once this job runs, it will put into queue, then it will give us the job ID, whether it is in queue or it's in progress or it's completed also, it will give us the job ID. And now we'll put our debug log to see what is our job ID. So we'll put job ID, and then plus we'll have our job ID to display it here. Okay, now as we have seen this, we'll execute this and we'll see how it is working. So I have seen the same thing which runs twice. First one is this one, and second one job runs here. Now we will see our execute anonymous. This is execute anonymous log where we have given the system.debug log. Any system.debug log, if you want to see, you can just check this out, which will display as the job ID. So you see job ID, this is our log, it says our job ID. So we'll just copy it here and then click on OK. We'll just go here and click here, and then this is our thing. Click setup and then search for jobs here. So if you see jobs here, it says under monitor jobs, you need to go Apex jobs, not this jobs. We need to go for Apex jobs. So click Apex jobs, and if you scroll to the right, so these are multiple jobs that ran. I will just copy paste. It says doesn't find, but this is 18 digit, and here it displays 15 digits. So I will just delete last 3 digits, and you see this is our job that has run just now. And after this, it has run the second job. See, 38, 12, 38, and 12, 38, one after the other. So this is how you can monitor your queuable jobs. You don't need the job ID. You can directly come here, but as there are multiple, if you want to find the latest one, you can use your job ID to understand. See, very easy. Let's move on. Okay, benefit number 3 for queuable interface or future method. Queueable allows using non-primitive types as params, unlike future method which doesn't allow as objects. As you already know, future method, if you want to call a future method, you can either pass integers, boolean, strings, or list of IDs, but you cannot send the actual object, something like list of accounts, list of contacts, list of any custom objects. But that is possible with queueable method. Salesforce allow you to have this queueable interface to call any method with non-primitive types. Non-primitive types in the sense standard objects, custom objects. Now we'll try to create an Apex class. So contact creation queueable, and then yeah, that's enough. So we will create this a queueable class to create contacts. So implements queueable. Already know these steps, and then public void, and then execute, and then queueable context. And then we need to give some parameter name, and then done. So as you already know, we are aware of these steps. Now we need to see how parameters can be passed here. So our idea is, so I will just tell you our idea. So trigger, we'll try to insert accounts. So whenever we try to insert accounts, it will obviously call the trigger. So if there is any logic in trigger, it will run. And from trigger, we will call our queueable class. So queueable class to create contacts. So if account is created with name Shrikant, I want my queueable class to create another contact with the same name. As simple as that. So contact has to be created with Shrikant. So our queueable class has to get called from trigger. But to create a contact with Shrikant, it should get the account name or account ID from the trigger. So we need to pass a parameter. So trigger will pass parameter to our class with account as a subject, account as a parameter. Okay, we'll see how that works. So first step, we need to create our class, and then we'll call this class from the trigger. Okay, we'll take this out. So how to pass a parameter to a class? So as you already know, if you want to call a class, we need to pass that class name in this enqueue method. So if you see, we are calling that constructor. So whenever you instantiate, it basically calls the constructor. Okay, so here we'll create a constructor. So public the class name. So class name is this, constructor name should be same as the class name, and close. So inside the class name, inside the parameters, we'll get our parameters. So basically we'll try to get account from trigger. So we'll have the list of accounts, and we'll put the parameter name as expecting accounts from trigger. So we'll get some accounts. We need to get those accounts and then put it in our own class local variable. So we'll create one more variable. We'll put private list of account, and then ACC list to create contact. So we'll have our accounts, and then we'll create ding, and then ding. So this dot, so our local parameter has to be assigned with the list that will receive from trigger. Okay, so we got our accounts. So our idea is to create the contacts for each of these accounts. So we'll run the loop. So for account ACC, and then we'll give our account list as the total loop list. And then for each account, we need to create a contact. So contact con is equal to new contact, and then we need to give the name as same name as uh, the account name. So con dot name or last name is equal to acc dot name. Okay. In the same way, we'll assign the account ID also, account acc dot id. Okay. So now we have our account, contact, we need to insert it. So first we'll create contact list and then con list to insert, and then new list. So we have our contact list ready. We need to append each of the contact to our contact list. Con list to insert, con add, and then con. So we are adding each of the contacts. Add each contact to list, and as our list is ready, we need to insert it. Insert con list to insert. So it will insert all the contacts for each of these accounts. Only if we have some contact size, or else we shouldn't insert. So we'll just put another condition in case it might lead to error. Okay. So we have our logic. So it will run loop on all accounts that are inserted. And then inside this loop, we are trying to create contact with the same name of account name, and we are trying to associate that particular contact with account. Okay. Now our class is ready, which is ready to take accounts from trigger. So trigger has to send accounts here, and our constructor will be called, and our local variable will be assigned. And as soon as trigger calls our execute method, and when trigger calls our class, obviously execute method will be called later, and then in execute method we are looping all the accounts, and then we are creating contacts, and then finally we are inserting it. Let's check that out. So before that, we need to create our trigger. So creation of trigger is quite easy. Go to Apex and then trigger, and then give account trigger for contacts. So it's for contacts. So we'll click here and then click on account, submit. So a trigger is created, and it has to be after insert. Okay, because we are trying to insert contacts. So once an account is inserted, only then we need our contacts to be created. So these are variables to define whether it is after insert or before insert. So we'll just give is after and trigger dot is insert. And now we'll call our Queueable class. Basically, we should be doing it from trigger handler, but as this is a simple line, we are just trying to call our method directly. So in queue job, and then here we just need to call our class, which is this, and then put here and then close. But if you try to save, it will not save. Why? Because this class is having constructor now, which is expecting the accounts. So all the records, all the accounts that have been inserted will be in trigger.new. Trigger.new is basically a list which has the list of account, which is having the list of accounts that got inserted. So has list of accounts that are inserted just now. Okay. So now we have our trigger ready, and this trigger will call our Queueable class. Before it runs, our constructor will be called, where our constructor will be having the list of accounts to hold. And once it is done, it will call our execute method. Executed method will create the contacts. We'll see whether it is working properly or not. So this is how you can send parameters. That to trigger.new is basically a list of accounts, which is S-object. So this is how you can send S-objects from any place to our Queueable class. Let's see how it is working now. I'll create an account and we'll see whether it is working properly or not. New. Here I will create Shrikant, date 5th Jan, and then click save. Now it should create a contact. See, if you see, a contact has been created. See, this has been created from our Queueable class. This is how you can send parameters from any place to our execute anonymous. It will take non-primitive types, a list of accounts, list of contacts, etc., etc., etc. Okay, let's see the summary of Queueable. Queueable logic has to be written inside a class where this class has to be called using system.inqueue. All your logic will go inside an execute method of that particular class. Whereas in future method, it has to be a simple method where that method has to be called. And Queueable allows chaining of jobs. Let's say if you have two jobs, one's for deletion, second one is for inserting, then this second job can be called once the first job is done, which is not possible in future method. And Queueable provides you the ID of the job. By calling system.inqueue, you're actually running a job. It also returns an ID where by using that ID, you can see the job progress. And finally, it also allows non-primitive types as barons. But we also have a limitation here. Queueable cannot handle millions of records in one job. Let's say I want to archive or I want to delete or I want to update almost like a million records. Let's say 5 lakh records or 1 million records or 2 million records. It cannot be possible with Queueable. Then what is the answer? The answer is Batch Apex is the only way to handle such millions of records. We'll see that in my next video. And finally, this is a wrap up, and thank you so much. If you like this video, give a thumbs up, practice, 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 and bye.